talk about fountain pens, and I'm going to do a bit of a demonstration for you. I use fountain pens for most all of my urban sketching. I use fountain pens for most of my drawing, even when I'm doing concept drawing. Lately I've started to use some blue lines for more planned, intricate drawings, but for one-off drawing exercises and for everything else, I really try to keep it to fountain pens rather than sketching. Sometimes I sketch with graphite and other things and build up, but I like to use pens because pens are permanent, and whatever line you make you have to work with, so it forces you to concentrate more and be more attentive to what you're doing, because if you make a mistake, obviously you're done. So fountain pens really range in price and variation, and there's different levels of maintenance, high maintenance, low maintenance fountain pens. Of course, being a bit of a hoarder, I have pretty much, I don't know, all kinds of different pens, ones that range from $12 to $250 to $300. The one I'm showing you now, and the one that I probably will preempt with some stills, is this Platinum Preppy pen. This is made by a company called Platinum, which is Japanese. You've probably heard of them if you have any idea or affinity for fountain pens. These are the extra fine 02s. There's also a fine 03, which is good. It has a bit of a wider line weight. But what I'll do is I'll just start drawing so that while I talk, so it's not boring, and I'll keep talking. So this pen itself is probably my main go-to pen for urban sketching, for anything really. They're the pens that I keep with me all the time. They rarely dry out, rarely blot, rarely bleed, or really are, you know, very maintenance free. The inks that I'm using it's only one ink that I do use. It's called a carbon ink. Now this is a cartridge carbon ink that you can buy. This is an ink that is waterproof, so when you're using washes or watercolors, the ink is steadfast, so it's excellent ink. And these pens, they don't clog with it, where if you take this carbon ink, because you can purchase it in a box, right, or you can purchase it with like in a bottle, and then you can inject the ink using like a syringe into either a used cartridge or a converter like this, which all the pens come with. The Preppies don't come with a converter, so you'd need to use the cartridge inside and flush it out and then wash it. This will work well with this pen, but if I put this carbon ink in a Lamy, which is another affordable pen, I find it clogs, so it's very challenging to use a Lamy with a water fast or waterproof type ink. These pens are great because they're $12. They have good ranges of line weight. This is the extra fine, so it's a little bit limiting, but I prefer to use it just because I can get more detail out of it. And if I really want to, I can push a crosshatch to get the different line variations, or switch pens. But the main reason why I use these pens is because of their affordability, their reliability, and the thing is, if I lose it or I drop it, it's not like I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown because my $250 or $300 Pilot Falcon 18 karat white gold nib bounced off of a park bench or a concrete surface, right? Because it slipped out of my hand when I was doing whatever outside. Not that I've done a lot of urban sketching lately because of the COVID lockdown. But point being is, initially I thought, well, when I buy these fancy, expensive pens, right? Example being here's one here. And don't get me wrong, I love this pen. This is a Falcon nib Pilot pen. I believe it's extra fine as well. This has a great flowy, and you can see the line weight is a lot more maybe variable and flexible. It's a great pen, but I'm terrified to use it, right? If you're not made of money and like that, I'm terrified to use it in the field or get it lost or whatever, so I mostly use it at home for when I'm doing other inkings or more serious inkings that are not just off the cuff gestural stuff or urban sketching. It has a lot more flow, this type of ink. This pen, it's I think it's got the same ink, this carbon in it. It doesn't seem to block up that much, so it's pretty reliable. But then you're paying a lot of money for it, where these don't block up at all with that ink. But getting back to these, you can get a fine or an extra fine. You're in for like 20-24 bucks. I'm sure they're cheaper in the States. In Canada, things are always more expensive. But it has a good flexible nib, and if you take your time, you can really like they're just great pens. I find that fountain pens are more enjoyable than like a regular felt pen or like a black marker, just because I just like the liquid. The fact that liquid ink is coming out. I know you could say that a felt pen is the same. The other thing is I find that felt pens run out of ink really quickly, and you got to carry them with you, and they dry out, and they're just more unreliable. The other thing is that with black felt tip markers, like here's a Copic here. This is not a cheap marker pen. Copic Multiliner 0.5. This one is a pretty large nib, but these nibs they wear down. You can replace them, but they wear out. Where this one, it doesn't really wear out. The more you use it, it'll get more character and stuff, but it's not going to wear away. I find most of the time, because I'm a bit heavy-handed when I'm drawing with markers, that the fine tip ones for detail, they fall apart, or long before the ink is gone. The tip wears away, so the pen ends up going in the garbage, or you leave the lid off and it dries out, or I don't know. I'm sure everyone is entitled to their opinion. Some people, they do great pieces of work with microns and Staedtler Mars stuff, and Faber-Castell. I'm a big fan of Faber-Castell. Their pens and line markers are really good. They work well. I have them. Do I use them? It depends. Like our artists, I don't know about you, but I'm fickle. So one day I'm hot to trot on these pens, and then the next time I'm not, or whatever. I go digital to traditional, back and forth, and all that kind of stuff. But you gotta be motivated, and you just kind of, whatever you're into that day or whatever, it's good to have options. But I do find that these pens are outstanding for all kinds of drawing, like everything, and so cheap and so reliable for the money. I believe they're the best ones. Like, I want to have other ones. I want to have variety. I want to use other pens, but I'm always coming back to these because, like, when I was in Italy, this is primarily what I used to draw with, or when I travel. They don't explode on the plane where other pens will, due to the pressure. There's ways to avoid that. You can bag them, take the ink out, keep the ink separated, and then just use cartridged ink, and then cartridge them when you get there or whatever. So there's ways around that, but still the hassle of it, just to avoid it. These pens are really good. Now the ink is a little bit pricey. That comes in boxes. Those cartridges, I'll post them. I don't have it up here, but I have a GIF of it I can put in the video, so you can see where they are and what they are. I'm not getting paid to endorse these pens. They're just good. They're just good pens. There's a pen that I want to get. It's a Pelikan pen. I think it's more just an obsession that I have. I think it's about a $300 or $400 pen in Canada. It's a specific drawing pen that a lot of artists use. I think Louis Rossignol uses it. There's a bunch of different people. Parka Blogs, he uses it. If you haven't checked out Parka Blogs, it's a really good site for art reviews and technical reviews and urban sketching. I got a lot of inspiration from him. Actually, I'll put the link in the video at the bottom. He doesn't know me or anything. I've started to do these videos, but he's been doing them a long time. And he probably reviews these pens. I'm not sure what kind of review he's given them. But what I'm saying is that there is a one pen that I really want to get, but I just refuse to pay for it. And from my experience with what happens is when you buy these expensive pens is you don't end up using them because you're afraid to use them in the field, right? Like, sure, if you're at home or whatever, that's fine. You can use them. And, you know, they're relatively safe. You're not going to drop them. But, you know, you're in a coffee shop or you're somewhere and it's like, you know, the pen rolls off the desk because whatever, something happens, somebody bumps into you. If the nib falls, like, it's destroyed, and the nib is everything, right? So we got something for $12 that performs just as well, if not equally well. Sure, this is better, right? Some of these are better. Like this one here has a broad tip. It's like I think this is called a music nib. It has a really, really rich line weight, great for super darks. And again, the ink flows like magic, but it runs wet. Like if I smear that, it'll be wet to the touch. It takes a bit of time to draw, but you can see, like, to fill in the darks here or to add a line variation, it's very good. But just to get started, if you just want to start experimenting with fountain pens, these preppy Platinum ones are excellent. Now, Platinum makes a few other pens that are above this grade, ones that maybe go into the $20, $30 range Canadian. And to be honest with you, I continually come back to these cheap ones. They're just better. They just are more reliable. The other ones will clog. You know, I guess you need some sort of an affinity with pens, but you know, these ones really, they're more like a plug and play. It's really like, that's all you do is you put the cartridge in and away you go. And you know, you could get a lot of different types of line weights and effects. There is a bit of pulling of paper fiber, so sometimes you'll get like a buildup of paper flake or whatever, wet, matted, and blotted, but you just take it off with a Kleenex or whatever. That really depends on the rag of what paper you're using. Like if you're using a moleskin with the high clay finish on that paper, you won't get that, right? So, you know, like this video doesn't have to be that long, but what I will do is I'll finish this kind of lumpy sketch here that I'm working on as an example, just to show you how the pen performs, and then I'll throw a little light wash on it in part 2 of the video so that you can see how the ink adheres, or it doesn't travel, and it's very steadfast. So it's great, like, to take these in the field and then do a bunch of sketches and like just sketch architecture and stuff, different line weights, and that really come naturally to them. And you know, you have 3 or 4 cartridges in your bag, and that's going to do you like for a long time. Like your wrist is going to get long sore before you run out of ink, depending on your coverage. I will suggest though that if you're going to do something that has a lot of coverage, another pen that's really good, see these come in fun colors. This one here, you'll see like the pens are not made well. They're cheap, right? The barrel cracked, but I just put a piece of tape on it and it's holding fine. I think you can take these apart too, maybe not, I'm not sure. I know some of them they pull apart, but you don't really need to. You can't fill this and seal this because the metal inside is exposed. There's some pens that you can do a barrel fill where you just fill the body of the pen with ink, which holds a lot more ink. But if you've got any exposed metal, I'm not sure if it's the alcohol, probably not that. There's some chemical in the ink that will erode away the mechanics of the pen. So you can't do that with these, but there might be a workaround. I can't remember. It's all over the internet for anyone that likes to play with these pens. So you can see this one's a little drier, maybe because it hasn't been used. Like some of these pens, they probably haven't been used for like 6-7 months. They have this spring-loaded thing in the lid that seals it, and that's part of Platinum's brand. If you look at a higher end Platinum, this is a Platinum 3776. I think it's an extra fine. Again, it's a 14 karat gold nib. These are not the most expensive, but they're like entry-level expensive pens. This pen is a glory to use in reference to super fine lines and super detail. But again, it's, you know, I haven't pushed this nib very far. I wouldn't press hard on it, but it has a completely different feel than the other platinum nibs. Primarily, I think it's just more rigid, and because I paid so much money for the pen, I didn't, I don't have a tendency to push it to its limits because I don't want to destroy the nib itself. Like again, some of these pens, maybe they're just made for writing, but I find that most writing instruments are great for drawing. So, this is a Cadillac of this. Like this is, I guess, just like marketing, I started with these and then said, well, let's go to the next level and let's try this. And it's like, okay, here they are, but I'm telling you that, anything that I achieve with this pen or any of the other pens, like the Pilot Falcons, or I have a couple of Sailor pens, which are also very expensive. Like I can achieve exactly the same thing with the Platinum Preppy, which is $12.95 Canadian. Right, so it's pretty crazy. I know I was mentioning something about larger ink coverage. I don't think that I have one here, so I'll pause the video and pull it out. It's a brush pen that's also very affordable. That does a really good job of coverage. So I'll get it. Let me just get it and I'll get back to you. Okay, so in here there's a couple of brush pens that I'll show you. These are interesting, but again, they can be a little bit dangerous in reference to ink flow and stuff, and they're like, you want to kind of use them in more controlled environments until you get until you really get kind of the hang of them. Not really that you have to get better, you just have to get used to what the pen does and how it reacts. So above and beyond working with ink, I like these Platinum Preppies are top of the list for my reco and don't break the budget. Then there's this Pentel brush pen. Basically it's Pentel GFKP Japan. These are very popular. You can buy them in any art store. I think they're a little more expensive, maybe $12 or $15. They come with cartridges. The ink again is water fast, okay? It's an FP10 Pentel cartridge. They just press in. And this is a brush pen, so this is a whole other game, right? This is very different than utilizing just the pen and ink, but I can show you here the coverage. I think I got a fresh cartridge in here. I have 2 or 3 of these. I order them sporadically. But you can see if you want to make some high impact with dark coverage and really fill in some negative and positive space effects, like this pen does the trick. Like you're not fooling around. Like sure, you don't want to get it all over your face and all over your hands because it's permanent. At least if I recall it's permanent. We'll see, because I'm going to throw some watercolor on this. But you can just see how well you can pull this stuff out. I know I'm doing this at a pretty small scale. I don't have any lenses on the camera right now, so again, it's just more of a educational, just to kind of show you some gear. This is the first gear video that I've done, but see, look, you can get these really neat effects, right? So we'll watch how I cross that, blend that. I'll just put some of this in here. Maybe I'll pull this over here a little bit so that it kind of ties in. Pick up the pupils a little. And again, the thing that's interesting here is, I don't want to get my wrist dirty, is you're using a pen, or not a pen, well, you're using a pen, but it's a brush, right? So you have really interesting effects. I think comic, like manga artists and stuff, are using these guys for traditional type work. And you'll find that a lot of Procreate brushes and digital brushes, they emulate this kind of brush. A Fude brush or something is like the Japanese name. I'm not sure what the translation is. I probably should have done some research. But a Fude is I don't know, I've seen it used in a bunch of different kind of contexts. So let me just do this. I'll pull this over here. I have no idea really what's going on here from a theme point of view. But so there's that one. And again, this thing has some pretty good mileage. Like you could cover 2/3 of a good sized page, maybe 2 or 3 times with one cartridge, but more so it just has a lot of impact. Like you look at that and you think like, wow, like you got these fine lines and then you put this high dark behind it and it just pops. So it comes filled. This cartridge, I won't take it out, and this you can squeeze. So if you squeeze this, you're going to get a bunch of ink at the end. I'm not going to squeeze it because I don't want to blot out all the ink. This is interesting. There's a Korean girl that has an interesting course on Domestika. She does really good anatomical sketches of you know, sea creatures and different things like that. And she uses these. She uses them more as tone brushes, and she literally uses them to sketch with. So she's doing stuff like she uses it the angled line and then lightens it and then works the tone out as she goes. So this isn't even really showing a good example of her style. I forget her name, but if you go to Domestika, which is another great place to pick up some art instruction for, you know, it's not free, but it's good. Some of the language stuff is hard because of some of it's in Spanish, but they seem to be getting more English stuff lately. And I took this one urban sketching, or this sketchbook course with this Korean girl, and she was using these brushes. It inspired me to order a few. I haven't worked with them a lot because I've been busy working on my books, but it you can see, like, again, if you look at these three, they are very different kind of energy. The same dude is doing them, right? So see, okay, I will squeeze here now. You're going to see the ink. I don't know if you can see it coming into the barrel. But now if I squeeze as I paint there, we got a blot there. So now I made a big mess. But you'll see. I'll get this to dry. All right. So now I got a big wash on this paper that, again, as usual, is not designed for this. But I'll just work it out. Okay. So again, yeah, these pens are good for coverage, like I said, right? And you can see the ink almost marries to the other one. So my guess is the pigments are the same because I think it's the same manufacturer. But this pen just has a few more, it's just got more muscle to it. Again, I think you can buy high-end brush pens. This one seems to be a little less reliable than this. So we got ink on here already. But you know, they're both very good. This one I recommend because it travels well, it doesn't leak. I did read some reviews where they said it exploded everywhere. Like anything else, if you're using permanent inks, you need discretion. You know, a lot of other types of pens you can use. Here's a Sailor pen. This is a cartridge. It's a very small pen. I have small hands. This one I found that I did buy it for drawing. Again, it's all gold all around. It's very expensive in reference to what I would consider expensive to pay for a pen. I don't feel that paying a lot of money for pens is really warranted unless you're doing professional work. But they're nice to have. It's like jewelry, I guess. But this I bought to use for drawing, and I don't really use it for drawing, but it's great for writing. So go figure. There's all different levels of pens like this.